So today we're going to cover a topic that we have touched on before. According to what I looked at, it was about a year ago. So it's, I think, pretty timely time to revisit it. And it's especially good because we've got Nate camping somewhere. I guess he's at his place. And we've got Brittany, who probably this is the first time that she's been involved in this discussion. And we've got Brandon, Charles, and Holly who've been doing this for a while. And it looks like we've got a guest, Justin Burleson. Justin, hey, buddy, how are you, man?
Doing good, sir. How you doing?
I'm good. Be safe out there. I see you on the road. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I've been meaning to come to one of these.
So Justin is part of the small brokerage council up here in the Triangle, as well as his own firm. So Justin, today, and everybody, we're going to be talking about the test closing our clients to keep things moving along. And I've typed up a little bit of stuff and I hope to add to it as we're talking and add from your guys' discussion. But just give me your general impression, Nate, the first thing you think of when we talk about that test close. What does it mean to you?
Well, I think the absolute first thing that popped into my mind was the working with real estate agents disclosure. And I say that because it's just recently happened to me.
How about that?
I had a showing, and when I went up there and I dropped that, that's like the first thing I do, which I think surprises some people. Just because it's like, hey, you're asking me to sign something right away. But in itself, that's a great test close because, you're explaining it to them. You're showing them that this is not a contract. It says it right at the top. And, if you can get them to sign, then, that's basically a test close in itself.
100% agree. And let's be honest, as you're growing in real estate, right? When you start out, there's a certain discomfort level with asking somebody to sign something right away. Heck, there are agents who've been in the game for years who have a problem asking for that, right? It just comes down to your personality. But the thing is, are you going to set the tone for how the rest of this experience and process together is going to play out? So it's very important to do the right things up front. And like you said, Nate, that is one of the very first ones. I'm interested to hear perspective for other people. Zach, we're talking about test closes. Hopefully this will be a good thing for you as a newer agent as well. Charles, I know you've got examples. Tell me something, how you test close someone, what you've used in the past.
Really to echo what Nate said, the working with is really the first test close. Anytime I have an appointment with somebody, if they're unwilling to sign that, that's usually an indicator things are not going to be moving forward. And that's usually been accurate. I would say 90% of people that don't sign working with either end up disappearing, they drop off on their search. To me, that's usually the first and probably most important test close that you have.
I've got on my list some things before this. I'm curious to see if anybody says anything about it. How about you, Holly? What do you think?
Even if they respond to your emails, like just even replying to you in the first place, through Boomtown, we can see that people are checking your email. We can see that people are active on the site and that they're liking things. And then if they just completely ghost you from there, obviously that's not going to go further than that. With the working with, I feel like that's a case by case. I realize we're supposed to get that signed immediately. I do it as quickly as possible with people, but I feel like some people are so cagey and coming right into it, you just don't know. And I try to show a house or two, and then at the end of our spiel, I say, this is the only thing I'm going to ask you to sign. It does not mean, XYZ, and doesn't mean you have to work with me, but I legally have to provide this to you. It doesn't mean you're bound to me. But it seems like sometimes people will respond a little bit better to that than handing it to them first. I fully agree with handing the first thing off the right off the bat, but some people are too cagey.
Brandon, what do you think? Holly, I appreciate you sharing that.
I think until they're under contract, every conversation is a test close.
Very
An
good.
example would be, if you get a Boomtown lead, you have a Boomtown lead, you have a great conversation. Okay, I'm going to send you this e-alert. I'm going to call you back in 3 days to make sure I got your criteria nailed down. I make it to do the next day, and if they haven't opened the e-alert, they didn't pass the test close, right? If I have a conversation with them, I've been talking to them for a month, I give them mortgage information. Yeah, we're going to fill out the loan application. They haven't filled the loan application out. We've had this conversation 3 or 4 times, right? That's a test close. I think the working with is definitely, in my opinion, the biggest test close once you get in front of somebody. But there's a lot of test closes before you get in front of somebody, especially if it's not a warm lead, if it's a cold internet lead. And then when you get them under agency, right, that's a test close. And then, when you start looking at homes, giving feedback on properties that you saw as a test close, right? As an example, I want a first floor master bedroom, and then you send me a home that's got the master bedroom on the second floor. It's a test close for me at that point to come back and say, okay, now when we started this, you told me you wanted a master bedroom on the first floor. Is that still the case or not, right? Every conversation I'm having, there's some sort of test close, because I need to figure out, am I in control or not? Because I want to be in control the whole time.
That's excellent. All right, Justin, how about you? What do you think?
So I'm going to bounce off of Brandon's, a couple of things Brandon said. So first off, getting them pre-approved, pre-qualified is definitely a big step towards their sincerity to move forward. If they're not willing to do that, then they know they've either got an issue with the finances, or they're not serious enough to get a credit pull or whatever, and I'm wasting my time trying to get them into a house early on. The other thing is, the more specific they are about what they're looking for, the more likely they are to pull the trigger. I've had several conversations with people where it's like, I need at least 2 bedrooms. I don't care where it is in the triangle. Anything under 400 and square footage doesn't really matter to me. And then that's their only criteria. And so there's like 200 results, and I can't narrow it down. And they're not giving me anything, even after pointed questions, to narrow it down. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not sending you 300 houses. So you just tell me how to narrow it down, or we need to figure out why you're not being specific.
That's an excellent point. You have too many options, right? Like they're frozen or won't even look at everything. I saw that we have another guest, Charlotte. Feel free to chime in if you've got any examples of test closes that you have used with your clients. We'd love to get your input as well. Thanks for joining us. So guys, I'm going to share my screen with some notes that I put together, and you will not be surprised, I don't think, to see that it has several of the things on there that we talked about. Can you guys see my screen now? So I have, like I mentioned, I added a few at the beginning of that. Having a phone conversation. You get a lead that comes in through Boomtown, but they only want to text, or they only want to email. At some point, I need to hear you, unless you're physically in a location where a phone call is not possible, right? Let's have a conversation. Everything can't be handled by text or email. Let's talk. I think that's a huge test close, because it can also be a red flag. I'm not saying it always is, especially you folks at the coast have worked with people coming from Okinawa or Japan, or folks like that we're on completely different time frames, and it's really hard to do that. But at some point we need to have a conversation, and kind of taking that a step further, actually meeting with you, right? Okay, I qualified you. I know your criteria. I know what you're interested in. we haven't seen any homes yet. Let's sit down face to face so we can do our strategy session, right? If you're really serious about this, if you really want me sending you options to consider, let's sit down face to face and go over them in person, even if that means we're not going to see homes yet, right? We all want to close for that first appointment anyway, so we can get face to face because we know we're going to be able to provide more value. They're also going to see us more as a human and not just a salesperson, and are going to be more likely to work with us if we can get in front of them. So I think that those are a couple of huge ones as well that seem very minor, but if you think about it, I think they can be really major. Of course, we've mentioned the working with real estate agents. I think that's probably the biggest one up front. A lot of that comes down to your scripting and how you present it, you know, not making it that big a deal, just helping them understand that you're required to present this. It's not a contract. Just need you to sign here to say that I did share this with you. So I have proof for our records. Of course, when you get super feedback, you can always have them sign, refuse to sign, or you can write on there, refuse to sign. I also added down providing a formal timeline, which I think might play into what Justin was talking about a little bit. It's just like, well, any of these 3 criteria will work. So, you know, what does that mean? You know, we need to be able to have an end game, right? So we can backdate from that. So we know how the process is going to play out and I can set the expectations for that. So when do you have to be out of where you are now? When is your drop dead deadline for getting in somewhere, or at least close to it? Give me something to work with. Open-ended is usually not a good thing in our business, I don't think. Brandon mentioned the feedback on the e-alerts and the criteria being specific or changing constantly. I think that's important as well. It's a test close if somebody sends you a listing that they want to see that has something that you know they have already said is a non-starter for them. And we've talked about this before, but are you allowing your clients to send you stuff that they've already told you they don't want, and then you take an hour to get out there and show them the property and they're like, oh, well, I don't want this because it has X, when you could have done that and known that if you had just taken 2 minutes to look at the listing photos because they missed it when they were scrolling through it on their phone in the car on the way to work or whatever. Are you doing that extra work, right? As we've all mentioned, and this is a huge one, and it's probably a little far down the list in this one. These aren't necessarily in priority order. It was just the way they were coming to me, but obviously speaking to the lender and getting pre-approved, especially to Brandon's point that, hey, we've been talking for a month. I introduced you to the lender 3 weeks ago. You haven't even completed the application yet, right? We really are at a standstill until then. And that comes down to you setting the expectations also for how helpful you're going to be with someone. Are you continuing to show houses to people who aren't pre-approved after you've introduced them to your lender, or they told you they have a lender they're going to work with? Why are you doing that? Make sure you don't, right? Set the right expectations. Again, you're doing that to help them. We don't want them to fall in love with a house and then it gets, you know, taken out from under them because they didn't take the time to get pre-approved yet, so they can't make an offer, and somebody comes and makes an offer while they're filling out the application. It's happened to everybody.
Hey, Doug.
Yeah.
Doug, can you hear me?
Yep.
Zach and everybody in the Triangle office, they've probably heard me say this at least once on a Thursday. There is nothing wrong with, you know, after you've been prospecting and trying to get somebody for, you know, a couple of months or more, there's nothing wrong for saying, hey man, we've been having this conversation for 6 months now. You keep saying you're going to talk to a lender. At some point, you've got to do this. This is the only thing holding us back. I cannot do this for you. There's nothing wrong with putting that on somebody, right? A lot of agents don't feel comfortable saying that because they're afraid how they're going to come across, or most of them are afraid they're going to lose a prospective client. But if a client isn't doing what you're telling them they need to do to be successful, you haven't really lost them, because they're not really a client that can produce anyway. You're just feeling good about having somebody to call to check a box. So sometimes you got to put your foot on the throat and say, hey man, we're done until you do this. I cannot do this for you.
Can't lose what you never had.
Good point.
On. Exactly right. Exactly right.
And I think, kind of wrapping up these things, and I'm certainly happy to hear other suggestions to add to the list, but, obviously getting under agency at some point, I can't represent you. I'm committing my time to you. The commitment needs to be two ways, right? I promise you, the longer you wait to get agency in a relationship, the harder it's going to be. And that's why during the strategy session up front, we set the expectation. This is all you're going to sign today. They're working with real estate agents. But before we go out again, I'm going to send you the agency agreement so I can formally represent you, right? The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be to get that agency agreement, because you've already proved to them that you don't need it to work for them. So make sure you're getting that up front and prioritizing it. Protects you and your client. It's good for everyone. And then finally, making a decision. We've seen 30 houses. I hope that you don't show 30 houses before you have a come to Jesus meeting with somebody. That's a lot of houses, unless they're in town for the weekend only. Still, that's a lot of houses. Give me your favorite 10. And if you still haven't made a decision after that, we can explore others the next day, right? But if people are just stuck when every other box is checked, what's the holdup? Where's the disconnect? Do they have to make a decision, or are they someone who, if the right thing comes along? The right thing coming along is a tough client to work with, right? Because the motivation isn't there. Anybody else have anything to add? I think this has been a great conversation. It sounds like we all have shared experiences and we're all trying to look for the same things, but I'd love to add other things if you guys have anything in mind.
There's a, if you have some time and you're not sure about a client, run through an example transaction with them. If they've never bought a house before, and you gotta, you don't want to freak them out if it's early in the relationship, but let's just say, you like this house, I'll go back and I'll run the comps, or I've already ran the comps. Here are the numbers. Let's put together an offer that you don't have to sign, it's not official, but just so you can kind of see what the process is, and it also puts their mind in the game to be ready to do it when the time actually comes. And you don't have to spend a whole lot of time explaining due diligence and all that stuff with them later on either.
That's a great idea, Justin. I love that. Say, hey, pretend we wanted to make an offer on this house. This is how we would talk about structuring the offer. Here are the comps, whatever. I'm going to fill out the documents and send to you so you can pretend, hey, we're making an offer on this property. You read through the documents so you really understand what that looks like and what's in there. So when we get to the point where it's time to do it, you have absolutely no hesitation, right? Because that's what we stress in our strategy session, right? I want to make sure you're familiar with all this so there's no hesitation when it's time to pull the trigger. I know what's in the docs. I'm familiar with the docs. I don't have any questions about the docs. The only thing we need to discuss is the stuff we put in the boxes, right? Thanks for sharing that, Justin. Anybody
Doug,
else?
sometimes another test. Can you hear me, Doug?
Yep.
Sometimes another test close is when we have a difficult client that thinks they know the market better than you do. Sometimes a good test close is to get them to submit an offer that doesn't have a chance, because you need them to get their face kicked in to take them back and get them to really realize how it works in this market. And sometimes, no one wants to fill out paperwork that they know doesn't have a prayer to win, but sometimes we have to do that because that's the best teaching moment that we have to educate them on, hey, dude, this ain't gonna fly. Like, if you're serious, you've either got to get yourself competitive in this market, or we need to reassess and change our criteria to appeal to a different standard of property.
Sometimes you got to lose before you can win, right? I know we've all had clients that way. It's like, okay, we're going to do this because, they're just not going to listen to you. They need to see the proof. It just happens sometimes, no matter how. We can tell them till we're blue in the face. Some folks just are not going to listen. They've bought and sold 10 homes in the last 20 years. I know real estate. I'm an investor, all of that stuff. All right, well, we're data-based. We don't do anything on fill, and I'll show you the numbers. I'll tell you what information I have. This is what I suggest. We'll move forward with yours and we'll see what happens. What I said was going to happen, happened. And you're going to probably not say that quite as blunt as I just did, but you're going to use it in a way to revisit your approach the next time, right?
Yes, I
Okay.
signed my I told you so book.
Put it on the wall, right? But sometimes that does have to happen. And that is a good test close, because to Justin's point too, this is kind of like doing a sample offer, right? Hell, I'm pretty sure this is not going to get accepted, but we're going to do it, A, so they hopefully understand that what I said was right, and B, so now they're familiar with going through this process. And sometimes you use that to get folks under agency too, right? I've been there. I've done that. I think we've all done that. You write that offer that you know that's not going to get accepted because you need to do that to get them under agency. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if things happen pretty quickly.
I don't know if anybody is as crazy as I am, but quite honestly, I actually hope that the first bidding war we write loses. I really do hope it, because if we win, then there's always going to be that little voice in the back of their head saying, did Justin get us to spend $20,000 over list because, you know, or did he get us to pay too much for this house? You know, they're never going to know. But if they lose, also, by the way, I always recommend when you lose a bidding war, and it's not if, when you lose a bidding war, always reach out to the listing agent and ask how your offer ranked, how your sale price ranked, how your due diligence ranked. And, you know, they're not going to say, well, it won, obviously, but I think the vast majority of listing agents will tell you how you ranked. And what I do is I just take a screenshot on my phone with the text and I send it straight to them, because even if they didn't believe me, they're going to believe the agent who holds the keys to the house they really wanted.
Yep. Yep. That's a great idea. Always ask for that, because that can help your clients be better prepared to make a better offer the next time and follow the lead you probably tried to give them in the first place. Sometimes people just have to hear it from a second voice, right? We're all that way.
To piggyback on that, and that's an excellent idea that everybody should do, but if in the off chance you get that agent who won't tell you, or most of them aren't going to tell you what it closes for, go in Boomtown and make a to-do for when that property closes on the MLS, and then go back to your client when that home closes and send them the MLS sheet. Hey guys, this house was listed for $615. We offered $619. It sold for $646. This is what it's going to be like in this neighborhood if you want to be here, right? That's a great teachable moment. That's not you. That covers your bases, like what he was just saying. Hey, is Brandon trying to get me to spend more than this? That's what I think is going on here. No, it's not. Here's the data.
I believe in that 100%. And we tell people, right, we're data driven. We're not making gut decisions, right? Take the onus off yourself and any misperceived, motivations they might think you have. Look, this is exactly how it played out. Remember our conversation. The more data that you can point to, the more they're going to have to believe you, because all things point to that, right? So take advantage of that.
The funny thing with that too is how, like, if you look at the difference in like commissions off of something that's, only, let's say $10,000 more, it's like peanuts.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know how much difference I get in my pocket because you paid $20,000 more? Not worth my reputation and career to get you to pay $20,000 more. I'm just trying to help you win the house you said you wanted to win.
Yeah, there's something else that you can do too, that I've done with clients when we're making offers is, when I'm looking at comps and I've got them on the phone or whatever, I do a search for that neighborhood, or even use the sold comps for the house that we're making an offer on. And I do the spreadsheet, and hopefully there's, at least 5 or 10, whatever. And then I just go through. in the last 6 months, there's been 10 sales of similar houses to this one in the neighborhood and within a mile or whatever. This one sold for $20,000 more. This one sold $40,000 more. This one sold for 15. This one sold for list price. This one sold for 10 under. This one sold, and just show them. And the more that you say, like, you can usually get an idea of what the average of the neighborhood is, and you know that will kind of move the needle a lot of times too.
100%. Well, this has been a great discussion, guys. I don't want to cut it off, but I feel like we've covered a lot of area. Anyone have anything else to add? Well, it looks like it's another beautiful day out there. So get out there and enjoy it. Help your clients, have some fun. Thanks for joining us. I'll send a recap out and hope to see some of you guys or all of you guys with us next time. Thanks so much for joining us, Justin and Charlotte. I appreciate it. See you guys
Thanks,
soon.
Doug.
Have a great day.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.